Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Awaken Heart Podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Heather Fischer-Page, a spiritual guide and mentor who supports people feeling called to a deeper life purpose and spiritual practice. Heather uses her intuitive gifts alongside powerful tools like human design, spiritual energy healing, and techniques such as emotion and thought form released to help her clients step into their true potential. In our conversation, Heather shares her personal journey, the importance of integration and grounding in spiritual growth, and her connection with Archangel Metatron and other light beings. We also explore how animals influence spiritual work and discuss the common blocks that hold people back from fully embracing their gifts. Heather's heart-centered approach offers practical guidance and inspiration for anyone wanting to trust themselves more deeply and find clarity on their path. Hello, Heather, and welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. And I was just mentioning how you are the second person today from Missouri. And I think this is the first time in all the episodes that I've ever recorded with anyone from Missouri, let alone two back to back. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. And this is so cool because, as I mentioned, it's a series, it feels like, how these are all coming at once, how my last couple guests have all been about intuition and mediumship and spirit and being guidance and angel, all that stuff. And I love to hear your story. Everyone's story is a little different about how they came into really accepting and embracing their intuitive, spiritual, psychic gifts. And you had mentioned that how you had it since you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
And you were punished for it, which a lot of people, it's happened to a lot of children where like, I'm bad and this is wrong, especially when we have religious ideologies in the family. Hell and brimfire, it's sin, don't do it, all that. So you live with a lot of guilt and then you just close it off. And then, this is wrong, this is bad. Or maybe you see something or you hear something about grandma or something like that, and then grandma dies and you think you killed grandma. So, but you were saying about how you had a reawakening to your gifts. And I would love to hear that story about how it started when you were really young, maybe some things that you saw, and then how it led you into like really reawakening and embracing it and now using it as what you do to help others.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, it was something that was a part of me since I was a young child. And I was in a session with an EFT practitioner when I had the memory of being punished for my knowingness. And I was around 4. And so it got cut off. And I remember having like severe anxiety as a teenager and into my 20s and 30s. And even I was a young mom and I was having spirits coming to me. And I had a child on my hip and I'm seeing these spirits and in the form that they passed. And, when you have a child on your hip, that's the last thing you want to see because you want to protect your child. Of course, they couldn't do anything to me, but, because those gifts had been squashed down, I didn't know how to utilize that and tell them to go away and all of those things. So I shut that off at that point because my focus was motherhood and my life. And So as I had a friend come over who was a medium, she and I we worked together on closing a portal in my house. And she taught me how to clear the energy. And I started working with other people and helping them clear spaces, clear land, things like that, but always kept it really on the down low. No one knew that I was doing these things. And I was working in the corporate world at the time. And I kept getting sick. Like I'd have these autoimmune flares. And I remember I was talking with somebody and she said, a lot of that stuff can be tied to you not doing what you're supposed to, your purpose. And that was
Yes.
20 years ago, and I'm like, the only thing I was thinking of is I need to provide for my family and I need to, take care of everyone. And, that was the huge focus at the time. I had a huge shift in my late 30s when a huge autoimmune flare happened, and I decided it was time to get out of the corporate world. And I ended up doing nutrition. And I'm doing nutrition work because that was the way I knew healing, also energy healing, and had all these tools that I was using for myself. And those tools started to come through for me. And the right trainings would come up, and all of these pieces started kind of coming together for me. And I think it was 2018 I found human design, and it was when I finally felt seen. And all of those gifts that had been under the surface were starting to reawaken as I studied my human design chart and saw, all of these consistent energies within my chart that, oh, I'm supposed to be doing, psychic mediumship.
You're a manifester.
No, I'm actually a generator.
Oh, why does it say particularly manifester? I think I'm a generator too. Oh, you heard the one particular about manifester. Okay, you're a generator. You had
Yeah.
listened to one of my episodes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I found out this and, looked at my incarnation cross, and my purpose is here to use my intuitive insights. I have the highest level of intuition in the human design chart, but I still didn't believe it. It was so interesting because there was so much buried self-doubt because of what had happened as a young child. As I started working and doing this and getting into a 2-year energy healing program, I found a spiritual mentor who introduced me to why I was having these huge energies come into my room. And it ended up being Archangel Metatron. And I'm working with the spiritual mentor, and he's like, you are a mouthpiece for Archangel Metatron and other multidimensional beings. Are you up for this timeline? And of course, I said yes. And that's kind of when everything started aligning because I was allowing that to happen for myself. And so I started working with the energy of Archangel Metatron and really experimenting with it and learning the energy and allowing myself to connect with it. And Archangel Metatron is really there for people who are initiated into their spiritual path. When someone is ready for that, he can help people walk that that path. And so, but Archangel Metatron for me is one who stays with me, and I can utilize his energy in that way. I can embody that energy and use that as a channel for myself and for others. So it's really interesting. So working and allowing myself to have mentorship in that way has really guided me in what I do with my clients.
And I was going to save this for the near the end of this episode about any messages from Archangel Metatron or any of the different multidimensional light beings that you speak with. Do they have a message right now for my audience or for the collective?
Allow yourself to be a bridge for the light. We are experiencing some duality at this point, and the contrast gives us that opportunity to focus in and recognize what we truly want. What do you truly want? Do you want to be of the light and connect in that way with the unity consciousness, or do you want to dig your heels in and stay stuck? So you have this opportunity at this time to connect into the beingness. It just takes you saying yes.
Yes, and I can see there's a lot of duality on our planet right now.
Yeah.
Yes, everything seems so, like, divided, and it's been such upside down world. I feel it's correcting itself, and I think what the last couple of years has taught someone like myself is because I woke up to everything that was happening during it, I was like, "Oh my god," everything was out there, but you have to learn how to bring it back to ourselves and not be so be this little bag that's blown in the wind every which way and emotional like I was that way. And then it comes to a point where you do bring it yourself. Am I going to be someone for the light or am I going to be someone for the curing the dark? And I can see how that's really an important message because I see a lot of people putting everything outside of themselves. It's your fault. It's your fault I'm feeling this way. And it's your fault that I didn't get ahead this way. And it's like bringing our own personal power back to ourselves is really important if we're going to evolve.
The blame game
It's
is
unbelievable.
really is, and it's a good way to stay stuck.
Yes.
And it's important for us to remember that we need to work from the inside out rather than the outside in. Because when we do that, we are able to connect into ourselves, connect with spirit and our higher self, intuition, whatever you want to call it, and get the answers that are just waiting to be provided to us.
Hmm.
So it's just so important to remember that because I remember being in 2020 and just feeling like that bag in the wind.
Hmm.
And
Up.
and finally I was like, wait a second, what's the big T here for truth?
Hmm.
And what is mine to do? And
Hmm.
so really doing that work, and that's really when I committed to a lot of the training work that I did and started working with the spiritual mentor at that time because I knew that my path was my path and I had
Hmm.
to find it and dig out however it needed to happen.
And at that time, that was so important. You were probably well on your way to in this practice, but it's always good to have a mentor to help you. I mean, I had people that I could talk to. I was living in Portland by myself. I moved there just before the pandemic, the belly of the beast, and I was by myself. And anytime I go outside, I'm not wearing an apparatus over my face. Like walk in the woods. That was my thing. Where's your
Mhm.
such a time, such a crazy time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, I laugh about it now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, yeah, those mentors came right into place when I needed them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. And my podcast, from when it started, always evolved like, oh, the earth is slowing down and, the spirit. And then a month later, I'm like, wait a minute. This doesn't make sense. Wait a minute. It's fun. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's a really great message. I would love to hear because you tapped on a little bit about how you had some health challenges that led you away from the corporate world. And I know you had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, which what I've heard is very like disabilitating. How did your own health challenges shape your path in combining holistic healing with spirituality?
Well, it was interesting because I kind of came from the energy healing and spirituality background. 1987 was that huge shift in consciousness. I was in college at that time, but when I got out, shops that had all of the new age type of books really called to me. And I started reading books and getting in tune and in line with a lot of that, seeing energy healers and channelers and going to these amazing weekend type of events. But then motherhood came into the picture and kind of pushed a lot of that back. And that's when I started really dealing with those health challenges and took a very holistic approach to it. I remember working with someone on the chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia from the dietary perspective, but it wasn't, and maintaining and going, okay, I've got energy. I was living, but I wasn't thriving. And when I started adding in other healing techniques again and really putting myself first, that's when I started thriving. The energy healing work, EFT, so emotional freedom technique, and also doing my inner work and working with a therapist who did body work, who would help shift somatically the emotions with me. And so that really kind of connected me, and realizing that what I was putting into that corporate job, that energy was not where I really was led to be. And so once I was able to shift out of that, and knowing that I came from a background of with trauma background and started working on that trauma, and the healing from that was really helpful for me, you know.
Is that the turning point that led you to integrate your chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, and is that what led you to integrate nutrition, energy, healing, and spiritual practice to your work?
It was one of the steps within it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, because when I got my it was funny because when I finished my nutrition certification in functional nutrition, I knew there was more because I would start working with these clients, and I'm like, I was seeing intuitively what else they needed. They're, oh, they need to be doing, some energy work. They need this. Their emotions are really tied to this, because that was one of the pieces that I had studied as well. And so that was one of the catalysts. And so when I did my first nutrition certification, then I moved into, it was called Certified Food and Spirit Practitioner. And it was bridging science and spirituality and using the chakra system to help realign ourselves. And so utilizing that moved me towards the next pieces of doing some master classes in human design. And funnily enough, I found out about human design at a nutrition conference. I was working at the food and spirit booth at a nutrition conference, and somebody starts talking about, hey, I found human design, and I'd studied astrology for 30 years and didn't always feel seen within that. And I mean, it was traditional astrology that I first learned. But when I found human design, I really felt seen. And, a lot of us don't feel seen. And because we haven't been living our true and authentic lives. And so when you feel seen, then you can start uncovering those layers and that conditioning that has happened.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how that all got started. Developing the gifts that had kind of been pushed down really came with my spiritual mentor going, hey, go try it. Go experiment with it. I'm a 3-5 in human design. So I'm an explorer. I'm here to blow stuff up and then tell everyone what's the best way to do it. And then I'm a visionary leader, or a heretic if you do traditional human design. And quantum human design, I am a visionary leader. So I'm here to share
Mhm.
and lead people and guide people.
It's such a cool thing, human design, because I can see how you feel like you've been seen for the first time because it really I've tried to dive in. I've know some about it, but there's so many aspects to it too and so much to learn, but it's like pretty amazing. It's like, yes, that is me and that is exactly why I do this and this is how I react to that and this is why I'm reacting to this person and how you can do human design on your family or your friends or your loved ones so then you can relate so much better because you understand how their energy is reacting to your energy. I wish this was something that was taught in schools beginning in with elementary school or
Yeah, I'm actually teaching a parenting by human design
wow,
class
that's
this
great.
month. And so it is, for a actually a spiritual community. because I was leading a retreat, and we were part of the retreat is using the chakra system, grounded spirituality, really focusing on the foundation first so that we can align to God. And we went through the first and second chakras, talked about the foundations of human design. The second retreat, we talked about the open centers in human design and
Mm.
focused on the third and fourth chakras. And after that conversation, someone came up to me and said, I wish I would have known this with my children. And I said, yeah, I wish I would have known more, because I have a manifestor child and a generator child with an open throat. And, you've got motor to the throat kid and then a open throat kid, and it's a different way of parenting. So being able to do that is really interesting. And interestingly enough, human design was developed in 1987, right at that collective consciousness shift.
Yes. And I was going to mention about 87, like that was like the wild, wild west. It's the whole new frontier where a lot of our thought leaders started really getting onto the main stage, like Deepak Chopra, that's the Seth books, Sonia Choquette. And yeah. And so now we've got all these resources and places that we can go to. You talk about clearing someone's home. It's like, oh yeah, I understand that, but you were doing that way before someone else was doing it. You kind of keep it to yourself. Like that's something as a real estate agent, when I was doing real estate, I would advise someone, hey, maybe you want to get a clearing for your house, or maybe you want to get your house feng shuied. Let's look at the energies, like something that is, especially when I lived in California, that's something like people are very open to. So who are some of the thought leaders that really shaped your path
Well,
back in your beginning?
gosh, I'm trying to think about who really, I read The Secret, and back in that area and in that era, I was working more with local people.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember going to the bookstore and just kind of letting myself be guided to what books I needed. And there was a book called You Are Psychic.
Mm-hmm. I have that.
But then yeah, but then there was also a book, and it was lovely, and it was something I really needed at the time. And I think it came out in around 96, and it was called something like There Are No Coincidences, Only Synchronicities.
Mm.
And it was really helpful for me for the signs. And so I was doing some reading in that way, but a lot of my work was experiential. And really, I had never been taught how to ground at that time. No one ever taught. So I lived so much up
Oh,
in
so you're like la 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 la.
yeah, and put trauma on top of all of that. That's where you're going to want to live. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be in your body. And so a lot of that goes back to the health issues that I had, and really resisting that, groundedness and connection in that way. So when I kind of came out of that area, I listened to Wayne Dyer and Louise
Okay.
Hay and Abraham Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
All of those pieces were hugely important to me. But then, once I kind of went into more of my work with human design, I listened to traditional human design, but I started working with my mentor, Karen Curry Parker, who does quantum human design. It really resonated with me, the more evolutionary language, but looking at it from the shadow and the light, from the lower expression and the higher expression, really pulling all of that in was important to me. And then working with my energy healing mentor, and the first 6 months of our 2 years together were getting in our bodies and learning to ground, and not being allowed to close our eyes because it would unground us. We'd have
Mm.
to really ground in without and go inside to visualize, rather than with our eyes closed, because that would unground us. So there was a lot of that important foundational work that came, you know, and no wonder Metatron's a huge part of that, because he provides that spiritual foundation in all of this. really a lot of it was being given like a little nudge, and then experimenting with it was the way. And the way that my mentor explains it is, I'm very Gnostic in my way of working because it's very experiential.
Hmm.
I don't need the letters, provide tools for me and a foundation, but then I'm supposed to really just experiment and find what works and what doesn't work. And for me, it's very important to me to not get caught up in one way of doing anything, because we are so individual. Functional nutrition, we talk about bio individuality, and it's true in everything. Energy healing, any work, the same methods are going to work for each person. And my job is to figure out what's the best way to support and guide someone.
And with that, with healing and transformation, you talk about healing as a spiral,
Mhm.
uncovering root causes like people pleasing.
Mhm.
We've all done that at some point, and trauma. Can you explain this concept and how it plays a role in the healing process?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a great question. The spiral's really important. I think for all of us, and especially for anyone on the spiritual path, I mean, healing is not linear. Spirituality is not linear. It is, when we're releasing something, that piece is still there. We're not trying to get rid of it, but we're learning to not allow it to pull us under. So it's really, the spiral is about knowing we may come back to that same point, but it's not ground zero. We may
Mhm.
be at point 15, 99. It's just that piece where we may come back and something may trigger us, but we get to go and go, wow, I did it differently that time.
Mhm.
That's part of the healing spiral. And, with my autoimmune conditions, I've seen as I've done my work that if I get a flare, the flare's not like they used to be, because I'm reattuning, realigning, and figuring out each piece that needs to, each layer of healing that needs to come off, so that I can really get to that point of alignment in the way that I am with my energy.
And that's a really great way to have explained the spiral and how healing is not linear, like, is not linear, like, your life path is not linear. Because a lot of times during the healing path, it's like, "Why did that happen? I should have known that. I learned that already, and I should be way past that. Should, would. It's just part of it. Like, maybe I have to go back to that, and I'm learning something else. I'm not gonna learning something else from this experience."
Exactly, and it is, and it's so true. And what happens is, as we do that, we get this ability to kind of view it from that 50,000-foot perspective, rather than getting caught up in it. And one of the big things that I always tell my clients is because they'll say, "Oh, this happened again." And I said, how did you?" And they're like, "Oh, I did this and this and this and this." And I'm like, "Okay, first we're going to stop. We're going to acknowledge that you responded in a different way. And we're going to sit here and we're going to breathe and celebrate it." Because I think when we get started on that healing path, we can get obsessed with this like end result we're looking for. You know,
There is no end result ever.
there's not, because healing is transcendence, and it's, we're evolving until we transition. And so that's what the life in the physical body's all about. It's about evolving and growing and learning and healing, to provide this holistic really approach and view of our lives and the lives of people around us. So it's different. It's
Mhm.
a different approach, but also I think when we get caught up in it, we're like, okay, what's the next thing I need to peel off? What's the next layer? And I always remind my clients, you have to stop and celebrate your wins.
Mhm.
What did you do differently, rather than trying to be on this path to an end result?
Mhm. And if you just picture a like a bed spring, that's what I'm picturing, like that thing.
Mhm. It
I'm
is, and
stuck
it
in
kind
the
of
on this one. Yep.
goes up and up and
Mhm.
up. and I'm up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be a wide one or it could go really tight. Yeah.
Yeah, and depending on where you are in the process, it might be tight for a while and then it might
Mhm.
spread out and allow
Mhm.
some rest in between those lessons. So, yeah.
That's a great explanation of that. That's wonderful. And a visual representation as well, because I literally see it. I see like this little like almost like a nut on it, like
Mhm.
yeah, or a cat toy or something like that.
I think my cats would love those toys.
Yes, they do. Well, many people, as we've seen, especially nowadays, we thought technology and computers and smartphones should be making things a lot easier for everyone, but we're seeing it's like setting a lot of people back. And more people have anxiety and more people have depression, and many people struggle with chronic conditions like anxiety, especially
Mhm.
with technology and the pressures of the world,
Mhm.
ADHD, and there's a lot of autoimmune diseases. How do you help clients address both the physical and energetic root causes?
Yeah, again, it depends on the client, but I really we focus on coming back to ourselves first, seeing ourselves for who we truly are. A lot of times, I'll use human design if that aligns or resonates with them, or we might have a psychic medium guidance kind of session, rather, to see so that they can be seen, because a lot of times we haven't felt seen. And so, and then we start of uncovering those layers of trauma through talking. I do a lot of mentoring with my clients. Some sessions might be doing like a healing type of emotional release, thought form release technique, or it might be some constellation cord clearing work that I do, or it can be just talking and letting them talk, and then me intuiting the guidance through for them, utilizing their guides and their angels, and really kind of getting down into the nitty gritty of things, because if we're staying at surface level, we're not hitting what we need to. And I always talk about the dark and twisty bits that we have, and they're not always dark and twisty, but it's those pieces that really do get us to those root causes of things. And then we might do some energy work. And when I'm working with a client, I am constantly shifting energy and doing alignment and work as they are doing the work as well. Because I'm here serving as a conduit, but I'm also here serving as someone to help them regulate the energy. And so within a session, light language might come through,
Mm,
or a new affirmations for them to integrate. Because one of the big pieces that I find with clients is we work and then they wait and then we go to the next session. I always talk about integrating the new energies in between. I always
mhm,
work with clients bi-weekly. I don't work weekly with them unless they're in crisis. If they're needing, we're having a mentoring session and they're like, this is coming up for me, and I'll tune in and find out what needs to happen. We may do an energy healing session or a cord clearing session or something like that. But I really like to allow as we uncover the pieces, time for it to integrate and for them to try it out, to experiment with it, to live it. Because really, it's like with anything, it's like with church or your spiritual community or yoga or whatever you choose, it's what you do off the mat and in between that really is your spiritual path.
mhm,
And so that's a huge piece of the healing process, is to see how do we integrate it into the physical world, into, you know, our daily lives.
mhm,
How are we responding to people? Are we reacting or responding? Are we getting triggered, or and if we are getting triggered, okay, let's sit here and look at the root cause of it. Let's see what's really behind all of that. So I utilize all those different tools to help my clients in that way.
Integration is so important because pretty much any spiritual practice you need to integrate, like ayahuasca, you do the ayahuasca journeys, maybe you do it once or, maybe 2 nights in a row or whatnot. And the integration after is so important to integrate the medicine because that's where the real work begins. Same with yoga, just like a yoga class. You're in Shavasana, you're doing the yoga practices and the moves to get you to that final resting pose to integrate your practice.
Mhm.
And that's in the simplest terms. So, yeah, integrating, it's what happens
Mhm.
after or during,
Mhm.
the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge between.
Yes. Yes. I'd love to talk real quick about the energy work and spirit guides in clearing spaces. And we had said earlier, which is so cool because it's something that I would use in my real estate practice easily in California to have someone come and clear a space without people even batting an eye about it. You help clients connect with their guides and clear negative energy from homes and businesses.
Mhm.
What's one of the most powerful or surprising cases you've worked on?
Every one of them's interesting, but I remember getting a phone call from a mom who was concerned about their child, and because he wasn't sleeping,
How old was he?
9, and he was seeing things, and so, and they had moved into a new house, the parents had separated, so it could have been, just anxiety, but she knew that it was more than that. The child had therapist, and so I whenever I talk with someone, I always ask if I can tune into the home. And so I tuned into the home and saw that there was uh, actually an Archangel Michael was there for him, but also there was a like 3 portals I needed to close, but also there was a multidimensional being who was actually there to protect him, but because of his energy, it was very big. And we
Mhm.
also know that Archangel Michael's energy is very, very big. And so I first tuned in and actually physically went to the house. Sometimes I'm doing distance
Mhm.
house clearings, and I just teach the homeowner how to do it. And I always teach the people in person how to do it as well because we need to become empowered in these things. And so I started by clearing the house, and then I took the whole family followed behind me, and I taught them all how to clear the house. And then I worked specifically with the child, and I taught him how to connect in with those beings, and I asked him how he wanted to communicate and connect with them. I said, "Do you want to see them? No. Do you want to be able to call them in rather than them just show up?" And he said yes. And so I taught him how to use his discernment, but also create spiritual boundaries and work with their energies, knowing that he could call in Archangel Michael when he felt scared in his room. He could call in his multidimensional being to stand guard or whatever for him, and taught him how to work with those energies and introduced them to him, just like I would introduce you to him. I introduced him to Archangel Michael, and I had him describe him to me, and then I introduced him to his multidimensional being and had him describe him to me, and they had conversations about how they were going to allow them to work, because we have to remember that the beings on the other side don't have time, is not linear.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so they're going to show up when they show up. And so we have to create those boundaries so that we're not, working with them at all hours of the night. I've created those boundaries. I have what I call office hours in
Yeah.
the morning. When my coffee's in my hand, they're allowed to talk to me. So I taught him the ways to have those boundaries as well. Slept through the night at the new house after that. And so getting to work with children has been really good and I've worked with other kids as well to really help them to honor their gifts and develop their gifts in a way, but still allow them to be a kid.
Mhm.
And, it's been particularly healing for me as well because I didn't get to do that. It wasn't recognized when I was a child. So
Mm.
I love getting to do those types of things. So, and I just worked with a client because they're getting ready to sell their house. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but that was really building the spiritual foundation, because your home is your foundation. And so now, once the house is on the market, we'll start working on what she needs for herself too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
When you work with spirits, how do you determine if a presence is benevolent or something that needs to be cleared?
Well, the way I connect in, I have all the clairs. And so sometimes it will be, I'll get a word or the energy. I can sense the difference in the energies, and I'll be told. I'll get, because I've got Metatron and a couple of multidimensional beings who are with me at all times, connected to spirit. So I know I've got my posse.
I got my posse.
I've got my posse, but a lot of times the animals will tell me as well. My dog is a scaredy cat of big energies. And so if there's energies that come in, I'll tune in and see what needs to happen. And then I'll start asking, do you need to be crossed over? What do you need? And then I'll find out, and then I'll start doing crossing. Or it may be energies that are coming in to give me guidance, or it just depends. The cat will chirp when there's beings in the
I
house.
love the chirping.
I know. She'll chirp. She'll be chirping. I'll hear scratching. Like, I was working with a client one day, and we were just doing a mentoring session, and the cat wanted in the bathroom. I had the door that closed to the bathroom, and she kept scratching in the back, and that's where my altar is. And I tuned in. The client's talking, and I tuned in, and the cat, I was like, her guide's here. And it was a guide she had never met. But it was whatever word triggered for the guide. It was like, and Opal was the one, and my cat's name is Opal,
Oh, I love that name.
and triggered Opal to go get to, like, be my little sounding bell for me and to tune in. And so I tuned in and then introduced my client to the guide that was ready for her.
It's interesting that you mentioned the cats because this has just happened. I have 2 cats that are just going from kittenhood to, like, one turned a year, one is about to turn a year. And I just pulled out, I have this wand. It's an amethyst wand. It's on wood, and then there's a tip that's amethyst, and then there's some little amethyst beads. She goes absolutely batshit crazy when that comes out. Like, literally, the other cat doesn't do it, but she's rubbing all over it. She's like, I
Mhm.
literally just opened up the cabinet where it is, and it was in this little case, and she sniffed around and she saw it. She started going crazy for it. So I pulled it out for her. What is that? What is she's it's the crystal wand with her.
It's energy,
Yeah, she's picking it
It's
up.
Yeah, they do. And it's funny because if I am Opal will, certain clients, she knows before I even turn on the screen, she'll know they're there, and she'll be walking across the back of my chair.
Mhm.
She'll be rubbing. Because the guides and everything have come in, those beings for that person have already come in. So she'll do that. When I was first working with energy and was working with clients, sometimes I'll have energy coming off my legs, and she'll start biting at my legs. I'll be in the middle of a client session sitting there and get these little, like, bites, and because it looks like sparkles. And so it's really interesting how connected in. And she helps with crossing. She'll be in the hallway when I'm doing the crossings. Yeah, they're so sensitive. The dog senses the energy more. He sees some um energies, but for him, I always know that I had, like, a series of 3 things happen the other day. I had some crossing that I needed to do, and then I got some guidance from some beings, and I was doing that work, and then there was a healing session for me. And he hid in the closet the whole time. And through each thing, I'm like, it's okay, you can come out. And then I tune in, and there was something else going on. Come up the stairs to tell him to come out. And then I felt the beings there to come in and do a healing session on me. And as soon as the energy shifts, then he walks out. And so I always know when they leave, but there's, again, no coincidences. The synchronicity of those things happening is really interesting. So they are so sensitive
Mhm.
to everything. I love it. It's really cool to have them to help you with the work too.
Yes. Yes, for sure. And I was just thinking about a story that I had seen before. I don't remember where I saw it, but there was maybe it was in a nursing home or a it was in a nursing home, I think. And there was a cat there, and anytime it entered someone's room, they knew that that person was going to be passing soon. And the cat would be there with them as they transitioned to the other side. Yeah, if it'd be laying on them. Yeah. And there's a reason that in Egypt they were worshipped.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
yes, yes, because yeah, they provide that comfort and their purr has a certain
Yes,
healing
frequency.
frequency. So, yeah, they're so revered, and dogs are, also that stable.
Angels. Yep.
Yeah, they are. Oh my gosh, he's a big 65-pound angel
They're such gifts.
and
And
yeah.
and I've heard that, well, our cats are connectors to the spiritual realm, and then the dogs are here for this, isn't it, for the 3D? Like, cats are here, like, as our protectors. I mean, dogs are as well, but the cats go to a deeper, more
Yeah, yeah,
mystical place.
yeah, they have more dimensional sight.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting. Yeah, like I said, I'm crossing over beings that are not just, four-dimensional or fifth dimensional, they're and that I'm having higher level dimensional beings in my home and Opal sometimes will tune in because I'm living my life, I'm vacuuming or whatever. She's tuning into those higher dimensions. She's tuned into them at all times because she's not, paying bills and
Right.
all of those things.
Just in the present moment.
Yeah, they're in the present moment, so they do, and the dogs, are these like they are that grounding force for us, I feel like. I feel like he's that huge grounding force for me. Um, and really, yeah. And provides he'll be in energy healings also, and it's almost like he filters some of that stuff and yeah, provides that stability in a way and that
Mhm.
comfort too. So
Were
yeah.
they raised together? Are they friends, or do they
Oh,
tolerate
yeah,
each
yeah,
other?
yeah, they're on the bed together.
Oh, I love that.
The other one is he's a younger cat like yours, and he's out in actually my real office, so he kicked me out, so I'm in my other office area. But yeah, he's starting to tune in a little bit more
Mm,
with clients and things like that. But it is interesting to see how they shift from kittenhood into
yes.
that more healing presence.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Just a few more questions I'd love to ask you. You have the Integra podcast, and you
Mhm.
talk about empowerment, and you mentor people to unlock their true potential. What's
Mhm.
one common block that holds people back from stepping into their gifts?
A common is resistance. It's resistance. It's fear. It really is that fear. The resistance comes from the fear of being uncomfortable, and it's hard to see the other side
Mhm.
and of it. And I'll get some clients who'll come and it'll be like as soon as we get to where we have to look at the emotional blocks, the energetic blocks, because it's on all levels, they'll go away because the fear of the other side and the void sometimes can be very scary too. When you've had that healing moment and then you haven't integrated yet, it's can feel disconcerting. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And people are afraid of the void. I still sometimes, when I'm in that little void space, I'm like, okay,
Mm.
and remember that it's all part of the process.
Is that what the void space is, integration? So you've had the experience, or you've done the healing, or you've had that intuitive hit, or you've had
Mhm.
this profound experience. So the void is the in between before, like, fully integrating, like, oh yes, I did have this experience, and accepting it, and it being fully
Yeah.
embraced by you.
Right. Yeah. Because we got to, each healing moment or aha moment is a recalibration. So we have recalibration, we have integration and embodiment. And then when we mastered it, then we get that next piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that middle part can be kind of scary,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people. Because it's the unknown, because you're not in that old story and the new story hasn't quite started yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so understanding that this is the time when you're supposed to rest, heal, integrate, and take care of ourselves. I always tell when people are in that kind of integration time, make sure you're doing your radical self care. You're hydrating, going back to taking care of our physical body, because we are humans. We're in that meat suit right now. So we have to make sure we're taking care of our
The physical.
temple. Yeah, the physical, the sacred vessel, making sure you're doing that instead of trying to move on too quickly through the mastery, because there's a gift in that integration.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
For those that are looking to embark on their own spiritual and healing journey, where do you recommend they start?
Hmm. Start with the foundation. Get grounded, get present, and start from there. Get off social media.
Yeah.
Get
It can be such
turn off the
a
news.
dopamine hit, when you're, like, getting
Yes.
dopamine hit from it.
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, I'm not
Yeah,
exempt.
me either. I mean, yeah, yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in
Mhm,
the dopamine hits of, and the scrolling and things like that. But cutting out the external noise and getting quiet with yourself is the best thing. Getting grounded and quiet and allowing yourself to really be in your body. That can be the most thing, because we can't make our decisions from in our heads. We have to allow anything to integrate so that we can bring forth that. So, it really is getting grounded and present.
mhm. Yes, picture those roots going from
Mhm,
your yep, all the way into the earth and then pulling up that nice red energy up through your or however you wanna picture it, up through your legs. Or if you're sitting, it's through your sacral
mhm,
your root chakra going in and basing yourself. Because it's just so important to be grounded because there's some people that are very spiritual and, like, it's not just being in your head, like, in the critical thinking world. I've seen the people that are, like, just like you they're not even tethered down. They're like, "Oh,
mhm.
love and light." I'm like, "I can't relate to you."
No, and that's the one thing that I think, when I was in when the mid late 80s kind of stuff, it was really that new agey,
Spiritual bypassing, a
yeah,
lot of it.
spiritual
Yeah.
bypassing, and learning how important it was to be grounded and in your body, because we are physical beings. It was a huge piece of when my connectedness became more solid,
Mhm.
that connectedness to all those other realms. If I am not grounded in, that's when you can allow those other energies, those other entities to penetrate that field. So being in your body and being able to respond from that embodied place and connect from that embodied place allows you that discernment that you need.
What is a really quick, in a moment, somebody could do to ground themselves?
Um I always say, get on your feet and feel your feet. You can move your body, stomp, um, walk outside, get into nature, you know, touch a rock, whatever you need to do in that moment. Do some affirmations if you need to. I am present. I am embodied. I am in my feet. Anything that you can do to connect back into the present moment. I do, may all beings, I use the meta prayer. May all beings be safe. May all beings protected. All is well. If I'm feeling like I'm going into my head, I
Mhm.
anxiety or worry, I will immediately stop and do that. Pull that in. I go outside between clients. I go ground outside. I walk off their energy and come back in and so that I can work with my next
Mhm.
clients. Those are ways that you can do it. Yeah, I find stomping is one of the best ways, or swaying,
Mhm.
and making sure because you got to feel your feet. That's the thing, because it's so easy to become ungrounded and pull up, especially in, stressful situations.
Yeah, if you have a plat of grass accessible, that's the best way. Just take off your shoes and stick your feet in that grass because it's like the battery's getting recharged.
Yeah, definitely,
Mhm.
definitely. And you can do it through your shoes. I mean, we've gone from 75 to now 40 degrees today. And so, being out on that grass, but you can still ground through your
Really?
shoes.
In your shoes? Because 'Cause I'm hearing that rubber, like, will cut you off from I mean, you can breathe in the outside, just being outside and breathing that in is or stick your hands in the grass or something like that.
I feel that intention, you can do
Yeah.
anything through
Yeah,
intention.
I agree. Yep,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there are scientific things, but I just know that I just intentionally put my energy in
Mhm. Yep.
through through my feet. If I'm inside, shoes are off,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then I can ground in through and
My
really.
god, can you hear that? I hope my mic isn't picking that up. My stomach is growling like I've been on a 3-day cleanse I haven't been, but that's what it's growling, that howl growling. Please don't be picking this up.
No, I
I'm
will not
about to go
do any of that.
good. Well, we'll see during editing. Yeah, before we go, I would love for my audience to know how to find you, how to work with you, any of your social links or anything that you have upcoming that you would like everybody to know about.
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is through my email. It's support@integraholisticwellness.com. And it's integraholisticwellness.com. I have a website, Integra Holistic Wellness. I am on Instagram and Facebook at Integra Holistic Wellness. Those are great ways to work with me one on one. I do offer a 30-minute clarity guidance session because I think it's important for us to see if our energies resonate together. And then I'm also partnering with a friend and another channeler and energetics practitioner, Christina Myers, and we are doing the Light Alchemy Collective. It is on Instagram, but it's a Patreon group. It is a community for those who are ready for the work, who are seeking the grounded spirituality and the connectedness, not only learning to connect with higher beings, but also connectingness within community. For me, that was a huge piece. I felt isolated in a lot of things that I did, and sometimes I still feel isolated. And so Christine and I created the group, the Light Alchemy Collective, so that we can bring people together, those light workers, the light warriors, the people, the newbies to all of this, to really come together and know that you're not alone in
Mhm.
the work and the divine path that is there for you. So we are on Patreon at Light Alchemy Collective. We're on Instagram at Light Alchemy Collective as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I'll link all that below in the show notes. And I have one more last question before we go. I would love to hear from you what it means for you to live with an awakened heart.
Oh my goodness. Living with an awakened heart really is about allowing myself and you as well, the listeners, to really connect into that heart space, come from a grounded place, and allowing yourself to live heart open, um, and vulnerable and authentic. Being authentic and vulnerable are strong, and being able to live from that place, that heart-centered place, is really magic. When we can let go of the stuff that's held us back and live from that state, that's where the magic really happens.
Mhm. Let go and allow the magic.
So
Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
thank you so much for having me here today. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Me too. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.